This is Scoreboard with Chris Titley. Powered by Swiftex. Where can crypto take you?
Hi, it's Chris Titley here, and on today's episode of Scoreboard, the podcast, I'm joined by Stuart Law. Stuart, thank you so much for being a part of this series.
No, Chris, thanks for the invite. Looking forward to it.
I would love to have done this face-to-face, Stuart, in sunny Brisbane, but you're not in sunny Brisbane.
No.
You're somewhere else in the world. Do you want to tell the listeners where you are at right now?
Yeah, no. Currently here in Sri Lanka in Colombo. Part of our preparation with the Nepalese men's team for the T20 World Cup, which our first game gets away. We're underway on the February 8th against England at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. So great to see the Aussies did a number on England through their summer. Hopefully we can continue that trend.
Yeah, you got 2 and a bit weeks out. What's the team doing to prepare 2 and a bit weeks out? Is it a lot of net sessions, or is it strategy? What are you inside knowledge?
Yeah, it's a bit of work at the moment. The boys they're in a heavy week, so we're playing games, we're practicing. We got a day off today, but the boys are up to they're off doing gym sessions, etc. So this week's pretty physical. We taper down a bit next week when we land in Mumbai we got another 5 or 6 days training over there just to get used to the conditions and the pitches, etc. Before we head into our ICC period, which starts on the 1st of February, and we begin that in Chennai, 2 warm-up games there, and then we come back to Mumbai for the start of the tournament. So at the moment, mate, it is a lot of cricket, but that'll slowly dissipate, and we'll give the boys plenty of rest so that they can hit the first game fully energised and ready to go.
And the underdog status, Nepal versus England, how do you go with that, and what are you thinking as a coach there?
Oh, I love it, mate. And the way that we're looking at it, the 3 teams in our group the bigger teams at this point in time, we're not sure about Bangladesh's involvement currently, but we've got England and the West Indies. We beat a West Indies team in Sharjah earlier last year, before we went on to the World Cup qualifiers, where we went and we went through undefeated. So we got the West Indies, we got England and Bangladesh. If Bangladesh don't come, potentially we got Scotland as well, and Italy is the final one. So the Italian team would be different, made up of a lot of hard-nosed, tough, competitive Aussies, that you're unsure about. And T20 cricket can be one of those sports where not necessarily the best team wins on the day. It's just who turns up and fights hardest. So, look, that's what we've got, and looking forward to it. We're the underdogs. I don't mind being the underdog. It means there's no pressure on us, particularly against both England and West Indies, the 2-time world T20 champions. So it's great for us. We got no pressure. All the pressure's on the opposition to go out because they must win it. Everyone's putting them in that bracket. They will win. But that's great for us. If they make a mistake, hopefully we can be good enough to capitalise.
Do you go into a tournament like this with a particular goal in mind or an outcome in mind, or do you tell the boys just to go out there, and try and get the best out of them and have some fun and see what happens?
Yeah, fun's a big part of it. World Cups there's enough pressure going around because you're representing your country, and the people back home. The expectations are super high, and a lot of it can be looked at, and you think, well, that's a little bit unrealistic. But the way that our boys played against the West Indies, they really got up for that contest, and I'm just trying to channel everything that we did leading into that series for every game that we play against the big nations, and the Italians and potentially Scotland. So look, if we can channel that energy, channel that thought process, that's how I'm trying to get our boys into it. At the moment, there's no real, we're not focusing too much. We're just getting boys attuned to playing cricket, getting them as fit as we possibly can, and when we get into Mumbai, that's when we'll start really fine-tuning and picking out roles and working out game plans, etc., to really stick to. So at the moment, it's a lot of fun. We played a game yesterday that wasn't a lot of fun. We got beaten, but it's a good wake up call for our boys to understand that we've got to be on it every day, and come to a World Cup. They're very special. I've been lucky enough to play in a 50 over World Cup and been involved in a lot of T20 World Cups as a coach. They're great times, so you want to be there. You want to enjoy the moment. There's too much pressure on the players anyway, so you don't want to heap too much more with expectation. So get out there, enjoy, give it your best shot, and you just never know. On the day, it just might be good enough.
You mentioned the word pressure there, and I've heard you talk about pressure in previous podcasts, etc., about the big moments and how people cope under pressure. I mean, there's nothing, you can't really train for it, but how do you train for it?
Well, I train the players, or get the players thinking about when you feel under pressure, you just go back to your very, very basics, and you've probably heard the term, just bowl your best ball as a bowler. Batsmen, just get off strike, rotate the strike rather than trying to hit sixes. And that's where some coaches are different. But I just try and break it down. Working in the associate sector, with cricket, the experience is there, but the high pressure experience probably not so. They don't play enough of that high level, high pressure cricket against the bigger nations. So when they do come up against it, they've just got to understand too that the best teams, it doesn't matter what sport, and I've heard this spoken about a million times as well. In sport, the best teams, no matter what sport they're playing, will do the basics better than the opposition. They'll do it over and over again. They won't do it for a period of time. They'll do it consistently, and that's what makes them great. So trying to get our boys to understand that the basics are good enough, and we've got enough flair, enough skill that if we do our basics, my God, man, we could beat anyone. So it's just trying to drum that into them at the moment and get them to understand it, believe it. That's another thing. You've got to believe that what you're doing is right. And once we can get all that together, you'll find that we'll compete against most teams.
Just on that belief, trusting the process, I've heard that a number of times. How do you as a coach trust your own process? Do you change your process every now and then? Do you question it, or do you think, okay, we're on the right trajectory here, I've done this over and over again, I'm happy with the outcome leading into it, etc. And has that varied over time as a coach for you in terms of trusting your own process?
Yeah, 100%. It's changed completely. Sometimes you do it your way, and it might not be the right way for the team you're with. So you're constantly changing, because if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, and the old saying, you're expecting different results, or you're mad. So you've got to constantly change the words you use, the input that you have, different coaches coming in to help impart their knowledge onto the players that you have. So you are constantly. Cricket's a game where you're always evolving. The sport is just getting, the evolution of cricket between the last 15, 20 years is incredible, mate. So I think if you stay the same way, you fall behind. So you've got to constantly change. But once again, the basics are the same. You want to, first and foremost, you try and now, this is what I do now. I probably suffered from it in the, 15, 20 years ago. You create an environment where everyone's comfortable, everyone's safe, and it's a learning culture. Everyone's comfortable coming to the coach to ask a question. The coach doesn't push them aside and say that's rubbish. There's no such thing as a bad question. So you create that environment, and number one thing, it's got to be fun. It's got to be enjoyable. And then from there, you can sort of pick and choose, what you need to really focus on, work out the way the team needs to play, and the way the team's going to have the most success. So, that's my two big things at the moment, and then it's just imparting that knowledge on how to do it better. And one thing I constantly say to the players, that I'm not saying it because I want you to play like I want you to play. I'm only saying it because I think you can play better. And I'm only trying to help you give information so you can be the best version that you can possibly be. And, I don't want everyone to play the style of cricket I want to play. I want them to play the cricket they want to play. And that's how the players are going to be happier. So they're the little things that I do, and sometimes it works. Treat with teams. Other teams don't like that. They like a lot more information, and that's not me. I was never one as a player. I never took on too much information. I think if you got too much, it creates confusion. So you need the basics. You need to understand the game plan, and you need to understand how to execute that. And once you get that, you play pretty good.
As a coach, you've got a pool of talent to choose and select from, and you see skills and very skillful cricketers along the way. There's a lot of people probably at the same level in terms of skill, but what do you look for when you're selecting a team? What do you look for, outside of skills, and what some of the best players that you've coached and played with, some of the skills that they have that you think are a little bit different to the others?
Oh, mate, definitely. I've been blessed. Working in the subcontinent, you come up against, you work with unbelievable skills. I was lucky enough. I played against and I played with Matai Muraliduran. Played international cricket against him. I played county cricket with him at Lancashire, and then I had the pleasure of being on the coaching staff for Sri Lanka to work with him as a coach-player relationship as well. So that's completely unorthodox. Lasith Malinga in here in Sri Lanka is another one. Completely different techniques. Had they both grown up in Australia or England, they probably would be now stacking shelves at the supermarkets rather than plying their trade on the world stage and doing a fantastic job of it. Sanat Jayasuriya, another one here in Sri Lanka. So an amazing talent with the bat. So I've been blessed to work with players like that. And we've got the same thing here. So when I structure a team, depending on it depends on where you're going, depends on the venues you're going to be playing at. It will depend on the oppositions you're going to come up against as well. So you've got to be lucky with that little nugget of gold every now and then. But you in a spin attack, you want the ball spinning both ways. So whether it's a left arm spinner, left arm Chinaman, leg spinner, or an off spinner, whatever it might be. And if you've got something that's a little bit mystery, like a Ravi Chandran Ashwin, they become very, very, they're gold dust. So we've got a little bit of that in our team here, and with the batters, you want batsmen who are explosive, but you also need the batters who can hold an innings together to stop the wicket flow and create partnerships, and then the run flow at the back end. And crucial to T20 cricket is you need power at the back. If you've got power up front, you've got good players up front. They should have the technique. Technique gives you power. But you need that power down below, and particularly a sprinkling of right and left-handers. So that's what you look for the most. The talent pool in Nepal it's such, but it's not as big as other countries. Cricket's just become the most popular sport in Nepal now. So the talent pool, while it's there's probably 60 players that you could probably choose from, it's not as big as other countries at this point in time, but hopefully in years to come, that talent pool will grow. The domestic structure will grow, which will give the players a bit more of a foundation to come in and perform really well on the international stage. And there's always going to be that flair, that little bit of skill that you don't see anywhere else. And you think, wow, that's gold. We've got to get him involved. So we've got a bit of that, which I'm looking forward. I'm not going to say too much because there'd be people listening to this maybe that from the oppositions. So I just want to say that we got a bit of mystery. We got world-class spin. We got some great batters, and we've also got great power. So looking forward to it.
I'm going to go back to your playing days when it comes to red ball and white ball, and then 4-day, 5-day, and then 50 overs, and then now as a coach into T20, about the evolution of T20 and how that as a player when you probably didn't play much, if any, T20, but then morphed into the puzzle pieces as you talked about in trying to left hand, right hand, aggressive, hit the ball hard and whatnot. A little bit different to when you were playing. How have you gone about adjusting your mindset around what a good 2020 team looks like, what a good 2020 tournament looks like, etc., and everything to do with T20?
Yeah, I was fortunate. I played in the first ever T20 competition in the UK in county cricket, and it's where the the phrase was coined, you've got more time than you think. 120 balls is a short number of balls to face in an innings for a team, but it's longer than you think. I remember playing for Lancashire. I think we got bowled out for 60 in the first ever T20 innings, or pretty close to our first ever. We still had 10 overs left.
One that you remember, which was close to the first, yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy, mate. So and that's when we thought, geez, we don't need to go as hard as what you think. But even during our my playing days, I grew up in an era and in a culture where you had to win. So you weren't playing for draws. There was no, just matches for first innings unless it was rain affected. We always wanted the result. So the aggressive style of play was always there for us. As a Queenslander, that's how we wanted to play. And that's what was drummed into us from a very young age. We took that right through, and everything that every game that I played, and it was a real culture shock for me going to county cricket. And the first season I was at Essex, where they played, the first season that two divisions came in, I'll never forget the first meeting we had was, right, boys, we only need to draw 7 games to stay up. And I went, what? Draw 7 games out of your, 14 or whatever it was. I go, what about if we win 5? No, we've got to draw 7. And that was the mentality. I went, no, mate, no, I'm not doing that. I'm playing to win. And the way that we played to win too, we didn't hurt the team plan. We in fact enhanced the team plan by being aggressive and trying to take the game forward all the time. So, that aggressive streak has always been inside me. And now with the T20s, you don't want players just rotating the strike, just dinking a one here and there. You want them hitting it hard into the outfield. And the way that our players, the Nepalese players, they're fast between the wickets. They'll turn ones into twos into threes. We scored 3 yesterday, and the ball didn't go outside the circle. A throw came in, it hit the stumps, it went 2 metres away. The bowler had to react to where the ball, and by that time we'd run the extra single. So we've got to use our skills in that department. So hitting the ball hard into the gap, running hard between the wickets, we were always told to do that. Dean Jones was our benchmark in that era, and then Michael Bevan took it to another level. So that was our benchmark. So these are the little things you work out along the way, and to be aggressive, you can be aggressive by doing the basics as well. That can be a real aggressive standpoint where a batter, solid, huge defence, big wide bat, and the bowler goes, geez, how am I going to get you out today? And that's what you want to impart back onto the opposition to put them under pressure. So look, it's a matter of working out what's right for you, but also don't lose the aggressive. As soon as you go passive and you become defensive, you're losing the game in a split second. So you've got to remain that positive, but there's a positivity and then there's a recklessness. You've got to make sure you're not going too far the other way to become reckless.
Mm. Do you love where the game has gone and evolved over the last 10 years, broadly speaking?
Look, I think as a purist, I still enjoy watching Test match cricket and understand that that's probably the hardest format to play. It's brutal on the body and on the mind as well. So that's me as a purist. But I also do understand that without the advent of T20 cricket, probably all this other cricket wouldn't be taking place. So we've got to understand that it's a good thing to happen to our game. The other formats, the T10s, and where's it going to end? They're great fun.
I heard about it T4 the other day, actually. In the
I think it was a couple of games in England where we played rain affected. We played 5-5. And you think, where's it going to end?
the Big Bash the other day was a 10-7.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, the T20 cricket has come about and it's provided. If you now, I was fortunate enough to go to India in 95, 96, and you saw the state of their cricket grounds, their international grounds. Back then they were beautiful cricket grounds. Don't get me wrong, but now when you see the money from the IPL is being fed down to grassroots, so the IPL plus TV rights and whatever in India, it's massive business. But it doesn't just go to the top. It goes down to the grassroots. So every major city that's hosted international cricket now, the stadium is like a palace. The training facilities are second to none. The dressing rooms, they're built for players' comfort. In our day, we changed in a tin shed and what have you. And nowadays, you go to India, and it's, as I say, the ground is like a palace. The dressing rooms are huge. They've got a gym attached to them. They've got a number of ice baths and whatever. So you can do your full training, and this is everywhere you go in India now. And it's all come about through T20 cricket. So the game over there is developing. And you look now, Nepal, they played a university ground. The first MPL was played. It was just grass banks and what have you, people sitting on a grass bank around the ground. Now they've got seats and lights, and it's all come about through T20 cricket. So the developing nations are really benefiting from the T20 upsurge, but also the big teams, they're able to generate more money down in. Well, hopefully it's going down to the grassroots to provide opportunities for the next great players to come through and be on the world stage.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned about that grassroots. I think Cricket Australia probably sitting in a little bit of a golden goose right now with their Big Bash, and seeing what the UK has done in terms of some of the teams being sold off with that, maybe a cash injection at some point in time, whether that goes straight to grassroots or not. That's going to be their decision, obviously. But from a point of view of a player now, are you seeing specialist T20s players emerging more so and into the future, or the player that can play Test cricket like Steve Smith and then comes back to the Big Bash and gets 100 or 40 balls?
Yeah. Look, I'm a big believer your best players are your best players, and they will adapt to the conditions first and foremost, but also the format that they turn up and play. It's not so much a physical thing. It's more of a mental change in your approach and your understanding of where you're at for that day. So, we're talking about Steve Smith, probably one of the greatest cricketers to ever walk the planet, and I don't think there's any doubt in that. So to transition from batting in a Test match, getting 100 at the SCG, and then coming out and playing at a T20 game, getting 100 in 40 balls is it's not unheard of, but it just shows you that your best players know their game. They know how to manoeuvre balls into areas where other players probably can't. So I'm still a big believer that you've got your best players. You will have your T20 specialists, your Tim Davids, now Mitch Marsh, those types of guys in your team. But you still need that quality and class, because we're seeing now there's a real trend now. The IPL, the wickets were so flat that it didn't matter. You could set up a bowling machine. Bowlers were on a hide into nothing. Okay. Now we're seeing that the wickets are doing a little bit. They're leaving a little bit in for the bowlers. The ball's slightly changed. The seam's a little bit bigger on the white kookaburra. So it's actually, when it's new, it's doing a little bit more. You do need your players who've got an idea of how to combat a moving ball. And Steve Smith opening the batting, he understands what the ball does. And he knows that if he can get one or two shots away, that stops with a white ball. Red ball, it sort of lasts a hell of a lot longer. But with a white ball, you just need a couple of boundaries or a couple of overs out the way, and it settles down a bit. But if you haven't got the technique, and you've got all the power in the world, if you haven't got the technique at the top to combat the ball moving, well, you haven't got no chance to use your power. So, those players are still valuable to the T20 format, but I know his heart and soul's in playing Test match cricket for Australia.
The skill set and getting that match practice, a lot of that comes, broadly speaking, from county cricket and or Sheffield Shield, and the Sheffield Shield is very dear to you. I'm curious to know what you're thinking around those competitions are in terms of a pathway now to T20 and or Test cricket, and what is it sustainable for the next 10 years, for instance?
I think it has to be. It's got to be a priority. Those competitions. That's where your players learn how to play the game. Your body gets hardened into playing proper cricket. And then if you go from playing 4-day cricket and you want to be a specialist T20 player, your body's ready for the rigours and of T20 cricket, being a franchise player. You don't just play one tournament. You finish a tournament, you get on a plane, you go to the next tournament, you start playing again. You don't really have a prep period. You're basically always in play, depending on how many tournaments you play each year. And if you just come up and you just want to say, right, that's what I'm going to do now, and you're not ready for it, you break down. So if you chose that road and you break down, if you break down in one franchise tournament, franchise is now owned by one person, and they have multiple franchises. If you break down in one of those teams, well, you never play for that franchise again, basically. So the hardness that you get from playing 4-day cricket in your body, bowlers particularly, and the understanding of your game for the batters in the 4-day game sets you up beautifully to play T20 cricket. And then you can make the choice. You can continue down the path of trying to play Test cricket for your country. Or you go, you know what, I'm going to play white ball cricket and I'm going to do 2 or 3 franchise tournaments a year. It's not easy. Don't get me wrong, it's not an easy road, but the money is unbelievable this day and age for these boys. I can't blame any player who wants to just play. I've had a go at 4-day cricket. I don't like it. It's not me. I want to play the T20. And when they do that and they're making the money they are and travelling the world and, enjoying it, you've got a short lifespan as a professional sportsman. You've got to make the most and, good on them.
Speaking of hard-nosed cricket, I'm curious to know, going back to your Sheffield Shield and or county days, some of the games that you remember that were the hardest and who were the hardest opponents?
Oh, mate, I was unlucky enough to play in the early days of my career playing for Queensland. We used to get the mickey taken out of us by a lot of the opposition players. David Hooks, who God bless, one of my greatest mentors ever, played. He actually wanted me to play for South Australia when I was at the academy. He got me into trial for South Australia. He batted me at 3 in these trial matches. He came to me and he said, I want you to bat 3 for me for South Australia in 2 weeks' time in the opening Sheffield Shield match. And I just thought, well, I've never had this type of conversation with a player of that ilk or that standing in the game. And I being a Queenslander, I said, look, I've got to talk to back home. So I spoke to Queensland. I came up and the rest is history. But, mate, look, those days of getting beaten up, there was a time Jeff Thompson was our coach. We got beaten by New South Wales. And you probably remember it. Queensland beautiful one day, all out for 75 the next. And at the trophy presentation, you had the likes of, Mike Whitney, Greg Matthews, whoever it might have been, the hard-nosed New South Wales cricket yelling out, hey, Queensland, never in the history, and laughing at us. And I remember that Tomo stood us out on the outfield and he said, Laura, I want you to watch this. We go, no, mate, we're going it. No, you're staying here, you're watching it. And that was the end of it. That was the end of us going, you know what, enough's enough. So we sat in the dressing room. This was after a Shield final. We sat in the dressing room and we spoke about how we're going to change, because we had to change the way we played and the way people saw us. We were the good blokes on tour, and we'd go out and we'd have a great trip away, play a bit of cricket, and if we didn't win, oh well, so be it. It wasn't. But we said, no, enough's enough. And there was that night where we just sat around and we just said, right, we've got to change. And we came out and we were a different team after that, and we probably became the most hated team on the circuit, because we'd gone from being the nice guys, the pushovers, to the guys who wanted to bully the opposition. And it actually got us into a winning mind frame and whatever. And we'd be talking on the cricket field, people would call it sledging. But if someone engaged from the opposition, we thought, okay, perfect. We got him on the hook. We just need to nick him off now. And that's how we got our hard edge. We weren't necessarily talking to players. But if they engaged, they thought we were sledging them. We might have been sledging Trevor Barsby stood at bat pad, watch this bloke, he's going to step on your toes or something like that, and all of a sudden we were the bad guys. But that's how we developed our hard edge, through getting beaten up week in, week out during Shield finals, normal games, and then, from there we've managed to turn it around.
Just going into that final in 94, 95, the expectations, the home crowd, it's almost a bit similar to the All Blacks in 2011 where they hadn't won for a long time, or ever. Well, they won in 88, but, a long time when they dominated world rugby and you were at home final at Gabba. How did you approach that in terms of this is a different game, but it's also another game we just have to get through and play and win?
Yeah, I think we were lucky because we had, the wealth of experience of Alan Border in our dressing room, and we Carl Rackerman also the heartache of a lot of Shield finals, bowling his heart out, walking off the SCG in tears and whatever, and that was still right at the forefront of our memory. And with AB in that team, he pulled us aside and he said, "Boys, look, this was in Hobart after we'd beaten Tasmania to win the right to host the final." They said, "Boys, look, next week's going to be hell, mate. It's going to be media circus. It's going to be XYZ." He said, "Guys, embrace it. Don't run from it. Don't shy away from doing anything. Embrace it. Understand that this is very special for Queensland, and it's the first time in our time we've ever done it. So let's make the most. Let's make it a week and a half to remember." And I remember sitting there going, "Shit, yeah, you're right. That's what we need to do. We can't run from it. We can't just walk here. We're going to win it because we're hosting. We've actually got to go and play some good cricket. But if we're blanking out the media attention, or it starts affecting us mentally, well, we're lost." So AB was brilliant in that week leading up to it, mate. He ran into every interview, every photo shoot and whatever, smiling and whatever. Captain Grumpy that we saw playing for Australia. He was the happiest I've ever seen him, and the rest is history. So I think having his calming influence over that week leading into that final was priceless. So a lot of credit goes to the great man.
You mentioned calm there with pressure, and in regards to, I suppose, embracing the pressure or ignoring the pressure. Where do you sit on the scale in terms of that? And you mentioned the word calm, and you've been described as calm a number of times. Did that come from that type of let's enjoy it, let's embrace it? There's going to be pressure, but this is all part of the price of entry.
Yeah, and I think it's been said a million times, but it's so true. Pressure is a privilege. You're the one out there you've got the opportunity to do something special, and that's where experience plays a massive role. If you've got experienced players around you, they absorb the pressure. And you look at them and you go, "Well, he's not affected, so why should I be affected?" And it's a domino effect then through the whole team. And also pressure. If you're under pressure, your skills get tested. But if you know your skills are good and they're good enough to be out here competing, you just worry about doing your job. So my job as a batsman or as a captain or as a bowler, I've just focused wholly and solely on that. And then pressure, it's there. You understand it's there, but it's not at the forefront. It's in the background. And if you can get to thinking like that, and it's just through trusting your skills, knowing your preparation's been good, and you're surrounded by a group of guys who are all running at the same fight, sticking together. That pressure seems to take a backseat, and then you can just focus on playing your game.
Did the pressure for you as a batter ever? You ever feel it, and you're like the eyes are watching you, and everything's onto you, and as you said, moving that to the back of the brain takes probably a lot of practice, I'd imagine. But did it ever get to you early on?
Not so much early on. I was probably a little bit. I wasn't that intelligent to really worry about that sort of stuff. But it did towards the back end of my Australian career. The pressure it got to me. And there's different types of pressure. It wasn't about. I didn't think that. Wasn't about my game not being good enough. It was just about, okay, I need to pile on a lot of runs here to keep my spot because, Australian cricket in those days, man, you could have picked 3 Australian teams and they would have been, very hard to beat on the international stage. So to have that pressure, knowing you've got to go out and score runs, and you're not playing against, old mate from, who works as a doctor through the week, and he's coming out and bowling his 15 overs on a Saturday afternoon. You're playing against the best players in the world, and the pressure you understand it, and you go, okay. And sometimes it becomes so overwhelming that you can't force it to the back. It's there in the front, and then it's just a real, the ball becomes, 10 times faster, and it's spinning 6 times more, and the pitch is getting closer. It's not getting further away. When you're in good form, the pitch seems like it's the longest pitch in the world, but when you're not going well and the pressure's there, it seems like it's a half pitch. And that's a time where you think, I've got to make a decision here whether I continue down this road, which will turn me into a nervous wreck, or do I just forget about all that and go and enjoy myself, play the game that I know I can, and hopefully, if it's good enough, you're still there. So that's when you think, shit, I'm in real trouble here.
And then as a coach now, like, how do you share those experiences, and obviously you have to live them, I suppose, to understand them somewhat, but is there some things that you can do to alleviate some people where you might actually go, I know that person, he looks out of shape there, he looks too nervous, etc., and what you can do as a coach?
Yeah, well, that just comes down to communication. You do, once you're in a team for a while, you get to know your players really well, and you can see them. You can see guys who don't feel pressure. They just go out and play and enjoy. And if it doesn't come off, they walk off and they go, "Oh well, I did this wrong. I shouldn't have done that. So next time I'll make sure I do X, Y, Z." And you go, "Okay, cool. He understands his game." But there's other guys who come off and they say, "Oh yeah, but the pitch did this, and the bowler was bowling here, and someone was moving behind here," and it's all about other things, and that's the guy who's under the most pressure. You think, shit, come here. You're not under pressure, mate. Because I'll speak because of the Nepalese with these boys. We could replace players, but we're not getting a Steve Smith or a Virat Kohli. We're sort of almost changing like for like. So I've tried to maintain that we don't we pick and stick. We don't just do wholesale change just because he didn't score runs last week, and this guy scored 100 in a tape ball match in some cricket, in gully cricket at home, and so you go, right, trust me, you've got to run at this, but there will be a time where you need to score runs. So you try and take pressure away, but it's a performance-based game as well. And they understand that they've got to score runs. If you're playing cricket at a high level like these boys are, they understand performance counts. And I've said to them, look, you're all worried about being selected. So the only way that you can make your selection safe is performance. And that's what I'm here to help you try and do, to perform. So if you're performing, your name will not come into the selection chat of changing. So it's up to you. If you want to know how to do that, then that's when you come to me or one of the other coaches or one of your teammates and work out a way how we're going to get better. And that's the only way I can alleviate the pressure off the player, is by giving them the trust that I want you in the team, I want you in the squad, but at some point you're going to have to perform. And it's just them understanding that and getting to grips with that before they understand it and move forward.
As part of your job now, you must have hard conversations, and you would have had some hard conversations in the past as a player when maybe there's a connection of friendship, or the person's just a really nice, decent human being, but you have to drop them. How do you go about those situations?
Oh, it's never nice. There was a kid recently who was part of our team in the World Cup qualifiers, and we went through undefeated. But a selection call came and he was left out. And I rang him. And I don't know, this is me probably growing up and having a son and, understanding the emotion of going to a World Cup and what it meant to, his family and what have you. And to have to tell him he's not going, I had tears in my eyes, I said, look, mate, I'm really sorry, but selection calls come. And he said the most beautiful thing to me. And he said, Coach, don't you worry. It's all my fault. I didn't score enough runs. And I said, mate, you got it. Okay, cool. But you're not. This isn't the end. This is the beginning now. He's only 24. So this is the beginning. So we can start again. So get back and that made the conversation really easy. Even though it was tough for me, choked up and tears in my eyes. Whereas other players you speak to, and they think they're sort of a bit further ahead of where you actually assess them or the rest of the team assess them. And then you tell them that they're not playing, they come back with all these quotes and stats, and the stats they're showing, you go, mate, yeah, it's not good enough. It's not what we're looking for. We're looking for better. So you got to understand that you need to go and improve something, change something, or just get those numbers up. And once those numbers start coming up, we can then have another conversation. But there's two types of conversations. I prefer the first one, where the kid goes, yeah, it's all my fault, rather than the player says, well, hang on, no, he's not doing this and he's not doing that. Why are you picking on me? And I've probably been there as a player myself, why are you picking on me and not these guys? But, I've learned that gets you nowhere.
And consistent performance, not just the odd performance here and there. And I'm finding, looking at things now, you can see YouTube clips and social media and all this sort of stuff around this package reels and highlights, etc. But it's got to be that consistent performance, right?
Correct. And consistency is what we're all looking for. Even in everyday life, business, you're looking for consistent performance from your workers, from your colleagues, etc. Yeah, you want that consistent performance. And professional sport, it's all about consistency. So players have got to understand that as well. That and it's not just on field; it's also off field that shapes a lot of the character in your team. Players who've got great character who do anything for their teammates. You want them around, particularly during a tournament where it's everyone's under pressure in a World Cup, but you want that calming influence or someone who cracks a joke or just to break the ice and create a mood in there that's infectious and you want to be part of. That plays a massive part of it, and it's not just you on the field. And then those guys, when they go out there, everyone's got their back, because they love them in the dressing room. Now it's his opportunity. Let's get behind him. And perfect example with that would be Andy Bickle in the 2003 World Cup in South Africa, where he carried the drinks for a million years, poor bugger, and he gets his opportunity in that World Cup and comes out as one of the best performed players in the tournament. That single-handedly destroyed England. With Michael Bevan to finish the run chase. But 7 for 20 and then, 30-odd not out. And everyone was so happy for Andy Bickle because he's such a great bloke off the field and he creates that, that presence and that environment in the dressing room. When he gets out in the field, they've all got his back. And, that's what you want. You're looking for character as much as, performance.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and and at the end of the day, we're all human beings. And we have a laugh and we have a smile, and we want to make sure it's fun as well. So, Stuart, I asked my guests a couple of questions that are. I love it because I get so many different answers. And the first one is their all-time favourite sporting moment, and actually on a podcast yesterday with Craig Starcevich, we were talking about the America's Cup. That was his all-time favourite sporting moment.
Well, funny enough, I've written that down. I remember it happened. I can't remember how old I was, but I remember my mother waking me up very early in the morning, like 5 a.m. or something like that. She said, "Stu, come downstairs." I said, "What's going on?" "No, you've got to watch this." I go, "What am I doing? Getting out of bed at this? What the hell's going on? It's still dark outside." And come down and watch Australia win the America's Cup for the first time. And you think, okay, pretty cool. The other one, mate, in being a Queenslander, I love every state of origin. State of origin for me is the best, form of rugby league. It's the hardest. I've been lucky enough to know a few of the boys who have played it, and they just say it's brutal. Teammates beating on each other and what have you. It's just great to watch. Great TV. And I still get a tear in my eye when Queensland do well. So Queensland through and through. So any state of origin series as well. But the America's Cup was one that I thought of immediately because it was the first time, remember Alan Bond, the wing keel, and John Bertrand, the captain, and all the rest of us. It was an amazing moment for Australian sport.
And Bob Hawke.
Around the next day. Who can forget the great man?
Yeah, and so I've had well, I've done 150 odd podcasts, but we've had Trevor Hendy, Fletcher Dyson,
Yep.
Wayne Pearce, Craig Starcevich, and Stuart Law with the America's Cup,
There you go.
and where they are have all been for that particular moment. And that yesterday in this conversation, when you were saying, I was in grade 8 or grade 9 or something at the time, and I was like, well, my moment when I was in grade 8 or grade 9 was the Sheffield Shield, right, in 94, 95. So where were you when,
Yeah.
etc. So that's a good one. We've got two, and some iconic State of Origin moments too. Ben Hunt comes to mind. Mark Coyne comes to mind as well.
Yeah, Mark Coyne, I was
Alan
at that
Mayer.
game in Sydney, and I was sitting with my uncle, and we were in the bleachers, surrounded by New South Wales fans at the Sydney Football Stadium. And I remember a couple of people around us. They said, "Oh, it's Stuart Law. Yeah. Hey, your team's rubbish. Yeah, you're losing your shit and all that." And all of a sudden, we scored with 30 seconds to go. And I'll never forget. My uncle and I got up. All the New South Wales fans are down and they're swearing and cursing and what have you. My uncle and I, arm in arm, bouncing up and down, going, "Yo, fucking guilty," as Coyne scores in the corner and whatever. And we go, "Yeah," and we're thinking, "Hang on, we've got to get out of here."
Yeah, there's some angry New South Wales supporters that are following you to wherever.
Well, the beauty of living in the UK now, if you did that in a football match, you're gone, you're dead. They'd cut your throat and you're out of here. In that moment, walking out of the Sydney Football Stadium, we ended up walking out arm in arm with New South Wales supporters saying, "What a great game of footy," and you go off and you have a beer with them. And that's the beauty of our sport, and that's what I loved. For 5-10 minutes there was war. We're not sure we're getting out here alive, but in the end, we're walking out arm in arm and praising each other, and that was beautiful moment. But yeah, I was there,
mate. Absolutely. I remember I went to a 2023 AFL Grand Finals, Brisbane Lions versus Collingwood. Took my son along,
Yep.
And at 3/4 time, I turned to the Collingwood supporter in front of me, who's barking all the time, whatever, and I just said, "Mate, this is just an epic game, and whoever wins at the end of this score, we've just had an unbelievable experience.
Yeah,
Whichever team wins now." Whatever, it doesn't really matter, to be honest, because it's such a great game. And he's like, "Mate, I agree. How lucky are we?" And I was like, "This is awesome." That both teams, Collingwood won by 4 in a thriller and everything, but it's like it could have gone either way. But we're in for an absolute battle. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings.
it's a spectacle.
Mate, speaking of sporting events, we've got a sponsor in Scoreboard, and that's SwiftX, and they're Australia's most trusted cryptocurrency platform with 1.5 million users in Australia and New Zealand. And as part of their sponsorship with Scoreboard, we run a little bucket list segment, which is part of their new campaign, Where Can Crypto Take You? And that is a sporting event that you haven't attended live thus far, Stuart Law, that you would love to attend.
Oh, mate, living in the UK and my wife being involved in golf, loves golf. She's an 8 handicapper at the moment. She's trying to get down even lower, which is no good for me because she beats me every time. So we have now got it right into the Ryder Cup. The Ryder Cup golf, the team event, the Europe team. Europe take on America every 2 years, or the USA. And the epic one last year was the Bethpage Black, which New Yorkers, they're not shy in showing their emotion or dissing the opposition, etc., etc. It'd be an epic event just to go and watch the greatest players on the planet go head to head in a team event over 3 days. Wow. Show me where to sign.
There you go. You're the first Ryder Cup, to be honest. I've had heaps of Masters.
Okay,
and heaps of Formula One, but the Ryder Cup, that's the first. So there you go. Just that individual sport, but then thrown into a team with fierce rivalry. Yeah, there you go.
Great. It's great to watch on TV. I'd rather see it live, though. It'd be awesome to see it live.
Oh, absolutely. Live sport. It's you can have all the AI in the world at the moment. You can't beat live
Correct.
sport. That's what I say. We've got another partner in Pocketsmith, which is a personal finance app out of New Zealand, and they've got over 80,000 Aussies in Australia downloaded their app, Pocketsmith, and it's track your spending and see your net worth. And they've just re-signed as a sponsor for us in 2026, which is lovely. And as part of that sponsorship, with all the money and things that go on in sport right now, I'm curious, Stuart Law, are you a budgeter? Are you the CFO of your household?
I'm not, mate. I'm terrible. I've made so many mistakes. I actually need plenty of help. If anyone out there is listening, He can give us
shout out to Pocket Smith. You should have a look at
he
it.
can give us help in working out where I am financially wise. I've got no idea, mate.
I was going to say cross country geography where you are, but more financially as well. Yeah.
No, financially, I need some assistance.
Now, we also run a little segment called the scoreboard moment. And this is a moment in your life which is very vivid and very clear. And then from that moment, things changed. I'm curious, Stuart Law, your scoreboard moment.
Jeez, man.
Put you on the spot here.
Yeah, I'm pretty blessed. I've had quite a few. Obviously being part of the losing Sheffield Shield finals team for a couple of years, and then to actually win we ended up winning 5. That's an epic moment, and that's personal to me, and it's pretty easy to see. But other than that, it could have been a sliding doors moment for me, and I think I may have chosen the wrong sport. But my grandfather was a very good sportsman. And one afternoon he sat me down at Mum and Dad's house. I was only 5 years old. He was a good tennis player and a good cricketer. And he put a tennis racket and a cricket bat at the back, on the back fence. And he grabs and he brings me over and says, "Right, son, you pick one, I'll teach you how to play it." And stupid me picked the cricket bat, And I love tennis. Grew up in a family where they played tennis and cricket, rugby league as well. But tennis for me, I've been lucky enough. I also ball boyed for John McEnroe during the Queensland Open years and years ago. My father was secretary manager of Queensland Lawn Tennis Association. I got chastised though by the ball boy captain for throwing off spin to John McEnroe and Mark Edmondson. I was getting a bit bored at the back just throwing balls.
Are you serious, ball?
I remember Mark Edmondson. He had a thing where he wanted the same ball in play for the next point, and I kept putting behind my back and throwing out another one, and he just whacked. He got the shits with one time, and he belted one straight back at me. So that sliding doors moment, mate. I wish I could have gone either way. I love cricket. Don't get me wrong, and I'm blessed that I've had the life in cricket, but if I played tennis, I could be sitting on a deserted island right now and enjoying life properly.
I'm sure cricket's given you a lot, and you're truly grateful for it. Stuart Law, I've got one more question for you, and that is the teenager at the moment who looks up to these idols in sport and wants to become a professional athlete, and you seen it all,
Right,
from one-day cricket to county cricket, Sheffield Shield winning captain and test cricket, etc. What's some advice that you'd give these kids now?
Make sure you love what you're doing. Don't do it for any other reason other than the love of the sport. Be the best person you can be, but no matter what the sport is, make sure you love it first before you worry about financials and what have you. If you only worry about financials, you'll never reach it. If you love the sport, you understand the sport, you get into it, you will find the financials will start throwing themselves at you. So that's the position you want to be in. Don't chase the money, chase the love, enjoyment, and good things will come to you.
Oh, that's a great way to end the podcast. Stuart Law, thank you so much for being on Scoreboard, the podcast, and sharing little snippets of your life, the highs and the lows and everything else in between. I wish you all the best for the upcoming World Cup. Looking forward to following your progress and supporting where I can.
Chris, thanks very much for having me, mate. It's been a pleasure.
This has been another episode of Scoreboard with Chris Titley. Go back and check out some of the other episodes you might have missed.